Hello viewers, Marianne from Revealing Light, Tarot, Astrology and Spirituality. How are we all today, wherever you are in the world? When you're watching, a huge shout out to you. The last time I spoke to you, I talked about potentially a COVID exposure within my household. Basically, we're still waiting for tests. One son has got his test results and that was a negative. My youngest son is still waiting on results. These can take anywhere from 5 to 10 days. I know people who are still waiting on test results. My son is out of the isolation period tomorrow, and he'll probably achieve that before he achieves a test result. In terms of myself, I am fine, absolutely fine. So thank you all for your comments and concerns, and let's hope it stays that way. In Australia, I read that the ex-president and Ron DeSantis, some call him Ron DeSatan, they are mentioning Australia as being some kind of police state. Let me tell you how incorrect that is. In December, we lifted all restrictions with this let it rip mentality. And let it rip it has done. It has gone through. We have one of the fastest growing infectious rates in the world. And we have that for a reason, because it just overwhelmed us as soon as... they were basic restrictions like wearing masks and social distancing. Basic restrictions were removed as the Omicron tsunami crashed onto our shore. Go figure, on the intelligence of those political leaders. So when people talk about Australia being a police state, no, it's gone from the sublime to the ridiculousness of political leaders trying to score political points. We have a federal election coming up, so this is what's driving these extremes of behaviour. It reminds me a little bit of 2020 in America. So when these politicians start calling Australia out, you can smile to yourself knowing that it's exactly the opposite. There are too few, or were too few, low-level restrictions kept, which just let it rip. So that's that. Enough of COVID. Let's talk now about the Oath Keeper leader, Elmer Stuart Rhodes III. What kind of name is that? Has been arrested for seditious conspiracy. I want to look into his energy. I've tried to find information. I wanted to look at his chart, but there is too much conflicting information around what year he was born. Some say 1965, a lot say 1966, and his birthplace. Some say Connecticut, others say California. So until we get an accurate birth date and place, I won't look at his chart. But I did, as a result of trying to dig for that, I did actually get a lot of information on him. I also looked at the Proud Boys leader, Enrique Tarrio, who was born in Miami, Florida, to Cuban immigrants. Both have certain things in common. There's not a lot. Information is hard to get on the web. That is a deliberate thing, I feel, to cover their tracks. And the second thing is both have either have broken the law in the past or have come into spurious kind of situations. In the case of Rhodes, he was disbarred. He's a Yale graduate, disbarred in the state of Montana for abandoning his client or clients. And he was also, a domestic violence order was taken out. His wife maintains or alleges that he was violent towards her, and her children used to wave around, always carried a handgun, waved it around. And of course he lost an eye, as it's reported, at a shooting range accident where his own gun went off when he dropped it and took out his eye. He's an extremist. Domestic terrorists are, if you look at their pattern, they're not meek and mild people. They are people who have come into contact and broken the law in the past and have left a bit of a trail of violence in the past. And so they should not be seen or given any sort of respect. We need to see them for what they are. They are domestic terrorists. And of course, Rhodes has been charged with, for all his Yale law graduation and, his past, I think he taught women how to defend themselves if they were attacked at one stage. He was a paratrooper. For all of that, you can see quite a violent type of individual there. If you read his indictment, it's just mind-boggling. He had stashed weaponry, something like $17,000 worth, that he was going to float into DC once they'd taken the capital. I mean, this was a full-on siege that was planned. So, I've looked at interviews. I don't think there's going to be much chance of him beating seditious conspiracy. It's an open and shut type of case, according to pundits. So, when I say open and shut, the evidence is so strong. Now, in my last reading, I also said those fake electors would be charged. I'm waiting for that charge to drop. I'm still maintaining they will. But first, before we get started and focus back in on the attempted coup in America on January the 6th, 2021, let's have a look. We've just had a full moon in Cancer, and I want to look at some messages from Spirit. Also, you will have known that we have had an earthquake off the coast of Tonga in the Pacific Islands, and both Australian coast and Chile coast were on tsunami alerts. In all my predictions in 2022, I predicted some kind of massive earthquake. I felt closer to Chile, but I guess I don't have an atlas to pinpoint it. Was that the event I was thinking of? Quite possibly, yes. I hope so, because that would mean that there wouldn't be a further earthquake closer to Chile. So I'm hoping that was the event that I saw. It certainly was a major event. In my climate change predictions, you will notice, even though I was reading on climate change, not earth changes, or earth disruptions such as earthquakes or natural disasters, I got a draw to water, a lot to do with the seas. And so I do feel that I was picking up those events, or future events. I hope that there are no further earthquakes in the Pacific. So let's get started with messages from Spirit for the collective. Bearing in mind the full moon in Cancer. Cancer, of course, is a cardinal sign, and it is about the emotions, and being able to express those emotions and feeling secure because you do express them when you hold them in. Of course, that does not shift security, although Cancerians can withdraw when they do feel insecure. Part of their learning is to work on that those feelings of security and emotional expression and release. Release reminds me of the earthquake. I feel pent up. Sometimes I feel pent up. The pent up emotions and anxieties collectively seem to be linked with these type of major natural disaster events. The anger, the angst, the worry, the fear. All right, messages from Spirit bearing all of that in mind from the Good Tarot. So we have the Hanged Man in a state of suspension. He is literally hanging from the sky in front of what looks like a moon. This is the individual and the collective. There's a feeling of unrealness at this time. And it's worrying a lot of people because we're kind of outside of our comfort zones. But we're there to look at things in a different way. It's Ten of Fire, the ending of cycles. It's like getting that information into us, being delivered to us. And just as quickly as it's delivered to us, it goes up in, it combusts. And that's what I feel, that's kind of what I feel we're feeling. Last night I had a series of dreams. A huge tsunami broke over me. Again, this water energy. And so that full moon, feeling that full moon in Cancer, getting the downloads, observing and seeing information, getting awareness, insights, and it's happening so quickly that we are, if you look, that person is almost looking at that person here trying to catch those notes, but the notes are going up in flames literally around her. It's a measure of confusion and quickness that we're not really used to. And the Five of Water, again, that accent on the emotions, the Five of Water, the Five of Cups, being spilt, water being spilt, whether they're misfortunes or knowing somebody that's experienced a misfortune, it is in our periphery, and consequently in our psychic antennas are picking all of this up. And then we have the air energy, the Seven of Air, the Seven of Swords. These messages, this information coming in. It is, we don't feel like it's for our own good, do we? But the Hanged Man, this moment in time, this feeling entranced, is there for our learning, because one of the things that the Ten of Fire does is there are endings of old cycles and needing to start anew. The astrology, you speak to any astrologer right now with that with Pluto there, again, one of the signatures of the virus, and it's squaring to the Jupiter and Saturn there over the last couple of years, and certainly in January 2020. One of the signatures, according to astrologers, well-known astrologers, of the virus coming. It's kind of brought out coinciding with major events like the election in 2017 and 4 years of a very disastrous regime. And what is happening around the world, what we're seeing from our political leaders, it's really hard to hear anybody talk straight anymore. And so this Seven of Swords, where do our choices fall? Do we play into that enemy, play into that enemy, play into that energy, if so, betraying ourselves, or do we rise above it? The Six of Swords, moving out of that those troubled waters, troubled emotions, deep dives. Do we play into the Seven of Swords, or do we take the option to set sail and rise above it? Rise above what just doesn't serve us. What do we do? The choice is ours. And the Nine of Fire, which is the Nine of Wands, and it is creating boundaries. It is creating boundaries. There are two options. We play into the Seven of Swords. We play into the whole, it's worse than a circus. It's quite monumental. Do we play into that energy, or do we rise above it? Do we rise above it and shift our gaze into, these are stars here, setting boundaries, understanding that the storms will clear, the energy will lift, the Four of Earth, standing our ground. In a way, this is a very grounding energy. It's a grounding energy that's needed at this time. And the Queen of Cups, again, she's serene. She has her emotions under control. She doesn't need to worry too much. She is encased, intact within her own security. This is the full moon in Cancer. This is kind of turned into a full moon in Cancer reading. That is the Cancerian card. She achieves stability through all the earth changes, society changes, collective changes. She closes her eyes and she navigates. She closes her eyes and she navigates through her heart and through her intuition. She doesn't need to see, because she can see within herself. And maybe that's what we have to learn to do. The Eight of Pentacles. The Eight of Pentacles. That's our learning. We're kind of in an apprenticeship in a way to learn to be the Queen of Cups, the Queen of Water. And interestingly, that the tsunami, the tragedy that took, I think, 2 lives and utter destruction on a couple of those islands outside of Tonga, closer to the earthquake epicenter, and destruction. You know, the tsunami, the water energy, and my dream last night that I was on the ocean shore picnicking with family, and a tsunami was coming, and they got away, but I was too late. And I looked up and there was a huge wall of water over me. Now, I'm either tuning into what the islanders are experiencing now. As I said, I said in my predictions and my climate change predictions that we have been flooded, our sheds and our property been flooded 3 times in the last year. There is so much accent on the emotions. It's like the emotions are coming up and needing to be released at the collective level. It's pent up emotions, and I associate an earthquake sometimes with those pent up emotions needing to be released. And so this is what the full moon, I'll finish this reading and then I'll close down and do the do a political tarot in a minute. But needing to release the emotions, the pent up emotions, and yeah, we have the Tower. Interesting, a huge fortress. What does the Tower do? The energy behind the Tower is it needs to be broken down in order to heal. We need to transform something. So at the moment, our learning, our apprenticeship is in transforming our emotions. And at the higher level, at the 6 of Swords level, where did you go, my beautiful 6 of Swords? I love this energy. I love it. And the 9 of Wands. What we're learning to do is transform our emotions, but the choice is ours. We'll either do that and focus on the world around us and all its trauma, individual and collective trauma, or we can be more like the Queen of Cups and channel this energy, because it is within our ability to do that. It is within our control. We have the strength to do that. I'm loving, that's the Emperor card and the 3 of Earth. And once we do that, now we talked about that the virus signature in January 2020. We said there's going to be a major earth-changing event, and there was. According to the astrology was very predictive at that time. But what we didn't realise is that as much and all as it was a collective journey, it was also a individual learning journey. We're still learning. But I feel that there is an opportunity here. And some people say to me, we tune into your readings because you're so hopeful. The 3 of Earth paired with, so Earth energies paired of course, the nodes moving into Taurus and Scorpio. Scorpio at its highest form is the Six of Swords in a way, because it's the eagle. It goes from the scorpion into the eagle, where it soars above, and there they are below the ship. It soars above what is below them, and in a way there's this transformation which occurs, and we see that very much with Jupiter in Pisces, but then moving back into Aquarius, and it was in Aquarius in 2021, that air energy, that healing. Aries is Aquarius, although an air energy, is known as the water bearer. Again, the healing coming forward. So we have this earth energy here, this Taurian type of energy, where once we've learnt what we've got to learn, we will find those of like minds. There is a part of the collective forming right now that is on the same vibration. And in 2020, we said what would happen once this major event is experienced, that there would be people moving out of a three-dimension timeline, moving into that higher vibration. And I've always looked at that very practically. We weren't suddenly going to ascend into heaven and leave the three-dimensional people down on earth. What we were going to do is collectively a movement began, which would be enough to take us into the future, into that Aquarius type of energy. And I think that's where we're going, the Five of Air. So the Five of Air dancing, dancing around the trauma, dancing around the collective trauma, and the Ace of Earth moving into that new start. There's something very holy about that elk and his antlers pointing to the heavens, with leaves and butterflies, and standing atop of that rock. In a way, we conquer the tower. We break things down, and then we move to the Ace of Earth. So when will that happen, you're wanting to know? When do we get to the Ace of Pentacles? We're getting there. We're getting there. We're doing our best to get there. I believe we will get there. The Page of Air, the insights, the information. It's very angelic. The card is very angelic. And I do feel that we are being watched over. And I do feel in a way that Mother Earth, the Empress card, literally Mother Earth, is giving us these lessons, is providing us with these opportunities. Again, the water energy. Again, the water energy. The Seven of Waters, Seven of Cups, Two of Water, Two of Cups. It's like we experience, we're having these parallel experiences. Individuals are having these parallel experiences, which takes us through to the Ten of Swords, which is some kind of ending of a major cycle and moving into the Strength, and the Ace of Fire. And the Year of the High Priestess. Greater spiritual connections. And we have here the King of Cups, which seems to come forward. I'll finish this reading here. This water energy, healing water energy. Emotional maturity, emotional release. So what is the choice? What is the choice for us? We have many, many choices. But I do want to finish with the Queen of Cups. I mean, in the 60s, they had peace, the sign peace. And it was lovely. People were wishing people peace. And in a way, I get that. I get that. But I also get this now in 2022. The High Priestess and the Queen of Cups. Beautiful energies, beautiful emotional trust. Emotional trust, emotional maturity. This came up very early, rising above rising above our fears, our mental worries, rising above that, seeing the big picture and trusting the big picture. So I'll leave that there, and I'll open up and do another reading. This is kind of like the full moon in Cancer, even though that was yesterday. But it's kind of like a Spirit Files as well. So I maybe just call it messages from Spirit. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll close this down and open up for a new reading on Stuart Rhodes. Thank you.